everyone, DCB here, and welcome to another Warhammer Age of Sigmar model build. In this one, we are going to be looking at a Chaos Knight model. I will be building and painting a standard bearer Chaos Knight from this set. I will be doing it in a mixture of time-lapse and normal speed, just to give you some ideas of how to paint your own Chaos Knights. Showing you the instruction here. Now it does show these greaves. Unfortunately, according to the Slaves of Darkness Codex, they do not have greaves, they have lances, so they'll be, well, basically lances. That's obviously the instruction book. Here's the models that we've got. We obviously have a few of the same ones. Show you what we've got on there. So we have obviously those two, which are the same. We then have the one with the standard bearer, which is the one that we'll be using. Only one standard, of course, and then of course you got the other ones there. So let's get this started by getting the standard bearer cut out and then painted. I hope that you enjoy this video. So here we go. Going to start cutting out the horse and then the rider for the Chaos Knight standard bearer. The reason I do it in subsections for the painting is it's easier for me to get into the details of the model than it is if I built it as one complete thing. You can of course build it however you want. I just decided to do it this way because it's easier for me. I also like to remove mold lines and anything like that, as it gives a cleaner finish to the model. The reason I am doing Chaos Knights as well is that I have decided to start a Warhammer Age of Sigmar army, and I'm going with the Slaves of Darkness. Now the infantry of the Slaves of Darkness, also known as the Chaos Warriors, are very, very slow. They don't have a lot of speed, or should I say movement. By putting in cavalry, not only do I increase the movement of the warriors, but also have a hard-hitting flanking unit that can go around, take out individual units of smaller models, as well as cause a lot of havoc in the enemy's battle lines. Plus the idea of extremely heavily mounted elite warriors charging down their foes sort of appeals to me, as it was a tactic used in history as well. You know, heavily mounted shock cavalry used to great effect to outmaneuver and then pummel the enemy forces, causing morale issues as well as, you know, general funness. And also being heavily armoured gives them an advantage at being able to maintain and withstand blows from the enemy, deflect arrows with their shields and stuff like that. Going with a standard of Chaos, just a standard one. Obviously a rallying point in the olden days, showing the livery and heraldry of a unit or certain house. That is used, as I say, as a rallying point, something to inspire and saying that we are here, this is where you need to get back to, or this is where your base of operations is if you need any support. Also can be used to say, follow me into battle, we're going this way, which is obviously very cool. Now I always seem to be using this Wraith Bone Spray for my Chaos models. It is because it's a lot easier for the contrast paints that I use, because I use a mixture of contrast and normal paints. I do all the shaking of the spray off screen. As I say, I just prefer the Chaos White. It's a lot easier to see where I need to go over and what I have and haven't already done in terms of spraying. So we'll leave these to dry and then we'll get back to it. So the first one is Sigmar Brown. This is going to be for the horse, or the horse flesh. I give it a shake just to help it flow a little bit better. And now let's get on to the painting of the horse. And I've decided to use Sigmar Brown as I just wanted a sort of dark coloured horse. making sure I go into all the detail bits. Great thing about the contrast paints is that they don't need an additional shade, as they're quite a runny paint and they go into all those recesses quite easily without you having to worry too much about overlapping stuff like that. And as you can see, for the legs and stuff, it just goes around the muscles, bringing out the bulges, all the lines. Saves some work for, well, models like this, where you've got a large surface base and quite a lot of detail, without having to worry about losing that detail, because you can't overload the it too much. And I prefer, I don't know why, you can obviously paint the horse whatever colour you want, but as I'm going for standard Warriors of Chaos or Slaves of Darkness army, a sort of dark brown is good for them. Need a bit more just for the body, and on the other side as well. There we go. Just finish off the legs, the bellies. Now we're going into contrast wildwood. This is for any wooden bits, which will be like the handle of the glaive, which is going to be a spear, and the standard. Once again, wildwood is a contrast paint. It's very, very good for wood effects. Well, I like it anyway. You can put on more than one layer if you want, depending on how dark you want the wood to be. It's literally, as I say, just for the shaft of the halberd spear and the standard pole itself. Making sure that I don't go into the bits which aren't wood, like the wrappings, the metal patrons and stuff like that. That is them done. And now we're moving on to the next part. I believe this is Gorga fur. This is going to be for all the leather details. The reason I use Gorga fur for the leather details is that I just like brown leather, if you will. It also is very good for like saddles and straps and stuff like that. Belts, all that kind of stuff is what this will be used for. As you can see, going in the belt there of the Chaos Warrior's torso. There will also be the handle wrap here, just like that. Gives a contrast to the wood, so it stands out quite nicely there. Also make sure I go into the hand bit so it looks like it's actually being held properly, not missing any bits. In the straps and the arms, where there's be straps holding on any sort of armour. The horse's reins as well, like that. Making sure I get all the bits at the top as well. There we go. And of course the sides there that hold the helmet in place for the horse. And then of course the saddle as well will be painted in this same colour. Just gives a bit of contrast between where the saddle is and where the horse's body is as well. There, like that. And do it again on the bits that hold the horse armour in place for the ankles where you can see it. Don't have to be too neat because obviously it gives lots of different dappling effects for different sort of lights, wear, that kind of stuff. Okay, and of course at the top here where there's a bit holding in the icons and stuff. Moving on to contrast ballistic grey. This is a metal colour for the metal bits. Now thankfully this metal paint really is good for picking up all those metal details. It gives such a sort of unique edge of it. Not only can it pull to be really, really dark, but it can also get very, very translucent depending on how much you put in there. So depending on how dark you want the metal bits, you can either put a lot on or a little bit. So for the chainmail, it's going to be quite light, and for like the weapon, it's going to be quite heavy. You've got chainmail on the horse head here and there, so you can see it's quite light, and then the spoke bits there as well for it, going in there. Getting in those bits. Sometimes you might want to make the chainmail a bit darker depending on how light it is. Got chainmail on the legs here, which is quite awesome. Also the sort of stirrups on the foot as well, like that. And then of course you even got chainmail on the horse's body, both the front and the back. You can see I need to go over it a little bit more there just to get it a bit darker. And of course all the hooks, all the sort of rings, all the chains coming off the back, goes into all those lovely recesses, giving it its unique look. There we are. Let's finish that off there. A little bit more there, a little bit more there. Spread it around a bit more. Voila. And then we are moving on to the next paint, which is Skeleton Horde. You'll see what this is being used for in a sec. Skeleton Horde I use for many different things, be that skull iconography, and I also use it for the horse hair as well, or as well as any sort of skulls. Now I tried to get it a little lighter on the horsehair and a bit darker on the skull iconography and the skulls. I also use it for any sort of horns, any sort of spikes coming out, like growths, to show their bone growths coming out of the horse, the Chaos Rider itself, all the kind of stuff. It's just, as well as the teeth, which is quite cool. It just gives it a bit more of a demonic look. It's got some twisted chaos energy, making it shift and spout these horns and stuff, as well as on the standard itself and the skull up there. Quite a nice little thing. Of course on the kneecaps as well, you've got these skull iconographies, bringing out lots of good detail on it, picking out different colours, making it a bit more unique. And there we go to the horsehair, as I said, trying to get a little bit of distinction between the horsehair and the skull iconography. The reason why I decided to go with the Skeleton Horde for the horsehair, it's just a nice little lighter colour, bringing out the definition between the horse, its body and its hair. Next is Balthasar Gold, a standard paint. This will be used for gold details. As Balthasar Gold is a standard paint, you will need to shake it a lot more than a contrast paint. Lucky enough, this is quite liquidy, so I don't need to add any more water to it. I just use it for a little bit of gold trim on the elbow pads or shoulder pads, whatever you want to call them. The shoulder pads, not elbow pads. Let's get the terminology right. And then of course on the horse armor, you've got all these raised bits which are gold detail. In my view, you can of course paint in whatever color you want. Just gives a nice little line and separation between the armor, sort of like the highlighted iconography stuff that you would find. It also gives a idea that the armor has indeed been welded in some places or riveted, and care and attention has been taken to make sure that this displays the power and the status of the rider, being an elite warrior for chaos, or any sort of champion really. Of course you've got a little bit on the horse head as well, around the eyes, just brings them out a bit more for bits like that. And then of course you've got these extra bits of bridles, which I'll be doing in this colour as well, to just give them a sort of separate colour there. Voila. Now for the next colour, I am going to do a bit more Balthasar Gold onto the legs. Yeah, just a little bit of Balthasar Gold on these ones, just for the sort of shin guards, just to give them a different sort of colour there, which is nice. Moving on to Corn Red. Nice deep dark red. Once again, we'll need to give this one quite a good shake. Not as runny as the Balthasar Gold, so it will need some water. This is going to be for, well, as you can see, fabric around the legs, bringing out this nice sort of dark colour. It's also going to be on this one as well. I'm not going to shade this red because I want it to be quite prominent and quite outstanding, which is why I'm just going to do it like this as a one coat colour. It's a very strong dark red. I'm also going to put it on the standard on both sides, making sure that I get plenty on it. Once again, it's just something that stands out a lot more in its sort of darkness and how vibrant it is, which is why, in my opinion, for this particular model, it's not going to have any sort of shading applied to it or any sort of wash, and it brings out the, well, let's say the darkness. Of course, you can obviously put extra bits on it for Khorne, blood for the blood god and all that, but it's just a standard red for the Chaos Undivided, or Slaves of Darkness Undivided, however you want to run your army. Moving on to Black Templar. Just for guessing where this is going to go. It is a contrast paint, so doesn't need anything water-wise, but I will need to be a bit careful when I'm putting it on to make sure it doesn't go over the details that I've already done for the silvers, for the golds, but it will give the armor a nice tainted black look, showing the darkness of the warrior. It also will reflect the light quite nicely as well, which is good for a paint, especially a dark paint like black. As you can see for the shoulder pads, I'm using my finger to help hold it in place. I got the body of the Chaos Warrior, making sure that I get in all the detail bits, making sure that I go over the bits that I have accidentally overpainted with other colours, sometimes doing more than one layer, in the head, all that kind of fun stuff, just like that. And of course the horse itself, it's got the black armour on the neck, the head. Once again, as you can see, doing my best to not go over the bits I've done before in the Balthasar Gold, the Skeleton Horde, the Sigmar Brown, the Gore Fur, and even the hands that hold the weapons as well. All need to be done. Once again, making sure I don't go over the other colours that separate bits from other bits. The arm that holds the shield, and of course the rest of the horse's body, its hooves, its arm that goes on its legs, the arm that goes around its body. Putting in all the nice bits, making sure that it just flows nicely. Doesn't matter too much if it does go on the gold, I can just highlight that and redo it later. But of course, the carefuler I am, the less work I have to do to undo any mistakes. And just finishing it off there, looking nice and dark and black, which is always cool. And now to put it together. Fortunately, I ran out of super glue, so I'm going to have to use plastic glue. I wouldn't recommend plastic glue after painting because it can warp the paint colours of the horse. Put it on a lava base I made earlier, link in the description below to that video. After being dry, it's time to put on the Chaos Warrior itself. Once again, unfortunately, having to use this plastic glue. Just making sure that the arm of the shield goes into the right place I want it, and then having this halberd in a sort of lance position, and finally putting onto the warrior the shoulder pads, and then the standard. Leave it to dry, and there we have it.
And there it is, all built, painted and ready to go. This Chaos Knight standard bearer variant. As I said in the introduction, because the law rules say that this is a lance rather than the halberd that it once was, that's why it's down in the sort of charging position. Of course, as I said as well, you can just paint whatever you want and just use this as a guide. Of course, it's on a lava base, which helps for the whole chaos thing. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And until the next one, this is DCB. Knowledge is power if we use it wisely.